She didn't mean to get into that car. But September rain in Manhattan doesn't ask for permission. When the first drops struck the shoulders of the small girl in a threadbare sweater, she dashed across the street, flung open the door of a sleek black sedan, and climbed in, as if it were the Uber she had called. "Sorry, I just closed the door," a gruff male voice cut her off. "We're already late." It wasn't until the car turned off Fifth Avenue that Emily Winters realized she had gotten into the wrong vehicle. The man beside her never looked her way, his eyes fixed on his phone. Clad in a perfectly pressed charcoal suit, face expressionless like someone used to giving orders, slicked back hair, a gleaming Rolex, a silver ring on his left index finger, everything about him screamed, "I don't belong to your world." And yet, she stayed, because outside, the rain had turned into a downpour. And inside, something pulsed deep within her, a strange, quiet rhythm, telling her that this was a mistake, but maybe the kind of mistake that changes everything. Emily Winters was 24, raised in a rundown suburb north of Boston. Her mother died of heart failure when she was just 11. Her father disappeared without a trace. Since then, Emily had done every job imaginable: dishwasher at a greasy diner, bargain store clerk, babysitter, house cleaner, just to finish a semester of community college and take care of her paralyzed younger brother. Emily didn't have a boyfriend. She'd never dreamed of someone rescuing her from this life. To most people, she was plain, quiet, easily overlooked. But if anyone had bothered to look closely, they would have seen it. Those brown eyes. Silent, yes, but never without light. The man from that night, the one who owned the car, was Nathaniel Quinn. He was 33, the youngest CEO in the history of New York's high-end dining empire, Quinn and Company. The press dubbed him the crownless king of cuisine. Nathaniel didn't believe in love. He'd once been engaged. He'd once been betrayed. Since then, he lived like a machine, precise, controlled, and deeply dismissive of what he called useless emotions. That evening, he was on his way to a charity gala, the kind of event where eyes followed your every step, where he had to play the perfect gentleman, no matter how fractured he felt inside. After a long meeting and a few fingers of whiskey, all he wanted was silence. And then, she appeared, like a blot of stray ink on an otherwise flawless page. When the car stopped in front of the Grand Hotel entrance, Emily finally dared to speak. "Sorry, but this isn't the car I ordered." He turned to her, frowning, then, squinting. "Who are you?" "Emily. I thought this was my Uber. I must have made a mistake." Instead of blowing up, Nathaniel gave a dry, amused chuckle. "Mistake? Right car, right time. During a rainstorm, that's a pretty skilled mistake." She reached for the door handle, ready to leave, but he spoke, quickly, and sharper than he meant to. "Wait, are you free tonight? I need someone to walk in with me. Just for this event. I'll pay." She froze. Her eyes widened. And then, she nodded. Neither of them knew it yet. But that single nod, small and uncertain, would become the beginning of the strangest, most unforgettable week of their lives. From the moment Emily stepped into La Lumiere, with an old apron hastily tied around her waist, she knew she wasn't welcome. Not with words, but with glances, side eyes sharp as glass, whispers that crackled like broken mirrors behind her back. "Who is she? Did she fall out of the sky? Pretty sure I saw her slinging street food last week." Emily heard it all. She didn't reply. She just worked, wiping tables, washing glasses, taking orders, enduring commands from coworkers who never said, "Good morning," but were experts at barking orders during the dinner rush. Nathaniel didn't say much either after signing that forced agreement. He passed her off to the evening shift manager, a woman with light brown dyed hair, scarlet lipstick, and heels that clicked against the tile like judgment itself. Anytime Emily fumbled a drink order, spilled coffee, or stood awkwardly in front of a VIP guest, the manager would step close, eye level, and whisper, You know why girls like you never get hired in places like this, Emily? It's not because you're poor. It's because you don't know how to exist in this world." And then she'd walk away, leaving words that cut deeper than any blade. On Wednesday night, the restaurant hosted a private dinner for a real estate firm. Emily was assigned to stand near the entrance, champagne tray in hand. Under golden light that seemed to expose every pore, every flaw, she stood still. Sweat trickled down her back. Hands trembled slightly, but she held the tray steady. Until a middle-aged man approached. Polished black suit, shirt unbuttoned just enough, breath reeking of whiskey and cheap cologne. "Oh, new waitress, huh?" He smirked, letting his hand graze her wrist. "Those eyes remind me of someone, but not quite as pretty." Emily pulled back, gripping the tray tighter. He chuckled. Above them, on the second-floor balcony of glass, Nathaniel was watching, and in that instant, something in his gaze shifted. No longer the calculating stare of a CEO overseeing his empire, but a look from someone who knew what it felt like to be violated without a word. He moved fast. By the time Nathaniel reached the floor, he was already in front of the man. Calm smile, cold voice. "I believe your table is in the back, sir." "Not here." The man paused, sneered, walked away. Nathaniel turned to Emily. Their eyes met, only for a second, but it was enough. Enough to tell her he saw. He didn't say anything, because sometimes words do more harm, and silence, delivered at the right time, is its own kind of shelter. But it didn't end there. The next night was a birthday party. Upper-class nonsense with influencers, young CEOs, and a few too familiar fashion models. Emily was told to carry the cake, a three-tiered tower of frosted perfection, candles flickering like judgment. She wasn't clumsy, but just as she stepped forward, someone, accidentally, backed into her. Emily fell. The cake collapsed, right onto the table. Frosting splattered across the guest of honor's designer gown. A shriek split the room. Silence fell. The manager appeared, pale with fury, eyes blazing. "What did you just do, Emily? Who do you think you are to ruin a night like this?" Emily stumbled backward. Her lips trembled, but she didn't fight back. The guest was dabbing at her dress, muttering, "They hire trash like that now?" Another staff member shoved her shoulder. "Get out. You don't belong here." Emily looked around. The stares all said the same thing. Just like that first time she stood at a bus stop, 16 years old, with a torn backpack and calloused fingers. That look, the one that screamed, "You don't belong." That night, she stood behind the restaurant, by the dumpsters, beneath a flickering bowl. Her hands still shook. She didn't cry, but her throat ached like it had swallowed glass. Then, footsteps. Nathaniel. He stood there, silent, just looking at her. "I'll leave," Emily whispered. "You don't need to fire me. I know I shouldn't have stayed this long." Nathaniel took a step closer. "No one gets to make you believe that." Emily let out a bitter laugh. "You don't believe I belong either, do you? From the start, I was just some punchline to a car mix-up." He looked at her, longer this time, then spoke. "Forcing you to work here. I thought I was giving you a glimpse of the real world. But I was wrong. The real world shouldn't treat anyone like this." A silence settled between them. "Tomorrow's the last day," Emily said softly. Nathaniel nodded. "But if you want to leave sooner, I'll understand." Emily shook her head. "No, I'll finish the week. Not for you. For me." She turned away, leaving him there, for the first time in years, unsure if he even knew what right looked like anymore. Emily's last day of her so-called trial week came and went without much notice. She still wore the same faded button-down shirt, still tied her hair up neatly, still arrived 10 minutes early, quietly wiping every speck of dust. Even when no one asked, Nathaniel hadn't shown up since the cake incident. He vanished, as if nothing that happened mattered. The manager mentioned something about an urgent board meeting in Paris, but Emily suspected otherwise. She thought, maybe he was avoiding her. Maybe out of guilt, or maybe because he didn't know how to face something inside himself. That night, the restaurant was quiet. Outside, rain fell, a gentle, endless drizzle, like a wordless jazz tune softening the rooftops. At 9 p.m., Emily untied her apron, folded it carefully, and placed it on the kitchen counter. She didn't say goodbye to anyone, because, truthfully, no one had ever really seen her. She walked out through the back hallway, the flickering fluorescent lights above blinking like a clumsy farewell. And just before the door, a small wooden box. She knelt. On the lid, a handwritten note. Open after you've left the restaurant. N. She picked it up silently. That night, in her tiny apartment with mold-stained walls and coarse linen curtains, Emily opened the box. Inside was a soft blue dress, not expensive, but beautiful in its own quiet way. The kind of beautiful chosen by someone who knew what you needed. Not what made the loudest statement. Beneath the fabric, a photo. In it, a young girl knelt on a city sidewalk, arms wrapped around an unconscious woman. One corner of the photo was blurred with water damage, but the girl's face was unmistakable. It was Emily. On the back, scrawled in rushed handwriting, 11 years ago, you called an ambulance for my mother. You were just a little newspaper girl. But because of you, she survived a stroke. I never forgot your eyes that night, terrified, but brave. Emily sat still. Then, a knock on the door. She opened it. It was Nathaniel, soaked, no coat, clutching a worn leather notebook to his chest. I'm sorry for coming so late, he said. She stood frozen. You knew me, all along? Nathaniel took a breath. It's not that I knew you. I remembered you. I searched for you after that night. When my mother recovered, she kept mentioning the little girl with messy hair who called an ambulance. But you disappeared. No one remembered your name. He handed her the notebook. My mother's journal. She wrote that if I ever found you again, I should thank you for giving her a second chance at life. Emily opened it. Inside, slanted handwriting filled page after page. The story of a woman who nearly died because no one helped, except one girl, a stranger. Nathaniel stepped back. You're not someone I saved. You're someone I owe. He looked away briefly, then back at her. I made you work at that restaurant because I thought I was testing you. But truth is, I was testing myself, to see if I had the courage to face kindness. Emily could hardly speak. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But if you'd consider it, I'd like to offer you a position. Deputy manager of our new location. He paused, not out of pity, but because no one else deserves it more than someone who knows what it means to serve with sincerity. The next morning, a new nameplate appeared on the restaurant's glass door. Emily Winters, deputy manager. Once a temp, now a leader who understands every corner of service. Those who once mocked her now bowed their heads. Those eyes that once looked down on her now learned to see her with respect. And Nathaniel? He didn't step back into the executive office. He stood behind the glass, watching the woman who once served leftovers step forward with her own strength and take her place. Emily officially became the executive manager of Skybridge Dine Local on a crisp winter morning. When snow began to dust the rooftops and the city quietly stepped into the holiday season, she didn't change the way she walked. Still took the bus each morning. Still bowed to every janitor and cleaning crew. Still poured tea for the nameless elderly man who visited each afternoon. But something in her eyes had changed. No longer the quiet look of endurance, but the calm gaze of someone who had been seen and called by her true name. Nathaniel no longer showed up daily. He left full control of the branch in her hands. But every Saturday, without fail, a warm latte would appear on her desk. No sender's name, just a small handwritten note. Never stop believing in kindness. From someone once in debt to it. That Christmas, The restaurant hosted a special dinner for the homeless. Emily stood behind the counter, personally serving every plate. Among the guests, a frail old woman arrived, silver-haired, wearing a thin shawl, face vaguely familiar. She was the same woman who once shielded a shivering little newspaper girl from the rain. Years ago, under a bridge, Emily said nothing. She simply held the woman's hand tightly, then guided her to the first seat at the table. Because kindness never disappears. It just goes around and finds its way back. A year later, in the lavender fields just outside the city, where Nathaniel's mother was once saved by a young girl, a small house was built. The sign outside read, "The Winter House, Home for Forgotten Souls." It became a place for the cast aside, the shamed, the weary, anyone who'd ever felt unworthy of existing in this world. Emily used her first ever savings, and a silent donation from Nathaniel, to build it, not as a house, but as a beginning. She no longer worked as a restaurant manager. She didn't have to, because now, she ran a dining room of trust, where people ate with dignity, and were called by their real names. And Nathaniel? He still came, not as a CEO, no tailored suit, just a man who once thought he understood the world, now learning it all over again. From the girl he once forced to work for him, because of a mistaken ride in the rain. Emily never told her story. She didn't have to. But once, a little boy at the house asked, "Miss Emily, why did you build this place?" She smiled, softly, and answered, "Because someone once called me by my real name. And that changed everything." And what about you? Maybe you're not a CEO. Maybe you don't own a restaurant. Maybe you'll never save someone's life. But if one day, you see someone trembling at the edge of the world, don't turn away. Don't think you're too small to make a difference. Because sometimes, the simplest question, "What's your name?" can be the very rope that pulls a drifting soul back to shore.